What was explosive was Izzy's first win over Robert Whitaker. The finish of Robert Whitaker when Robert Whitaker was a guy that was at the top of the world, and obviously still is one of the best middleweights living. When you think about this fight and the excitement that's been built because we've seen the matchup before, and Robert Whitaker and Israel Adesanya are both better fighters than they were that night. Robert Whitaker's already come out and said, you know what, ego was involved in the build up to the fight, and I was angry and I just wanted to take this guy's head off. And then Izzy's talking about just the beautiful science of violence. What excites you most about watching these men step into the octagon this weekend?
The rematch. The rematch, obviously, anytime you get to see Israel Adesanya fight, it's an event. I said one time, he's the guy that makes people want to come together. Like, Ryan, you'll call your buddies and be like, hey, man, at the house, I got the fights. When Israel Adesanya fights, he's one of those guys that makes you call a friend, let's get together, let's watch this. Robert Whitaker is a long-range and middleweight champion, a guy with all the skills in the world. What I look forward to, and this is why I love rematches, what team can make the better adjustments? How do you get Rob to not try and fight as though he's Kelvin Gastelum? Because I believe that's what got him in fight number one. How do you get Izzy to fight the same type of fight while making enough changes in order to keep him a step ahead of Robert Whitaker, who looks better today than he did before? But I remember that arena, 61,000, Ryan. Unbelievable excitement in the arena. But for Rob, when he talks about his ego, it's because when he was the champ, it all happened super fast for Izzy. It's very difficult to see the new guy just take the world by storm. And Adesanya had the belt 15 months into his UFC career, and it took Whitaker so long to accomplish the things that he had accomplished. So I can see how the ego played a part in his performance last time. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm excited about it. These are two of the best fighters that are living right now, right? Obviously, the two top middleweights, and it really is no question. And when I think about rematches, I look at it as if you're playing the Baltimore Ravens twice a year, and you have that first game. Both of you are tops in the AFC North, two of the best teams in the AFC, and one team just edges out another team, or one team is more physical than the other. Now you're watching film for that second time, trying to figure out, how do I get one play better? And I would have to think that Israel Adesanya and Robert Whitaker are trying to figure out, how do I get one strike better? How do I get one attempted takedown better? DC, when you were going into rematches of high stakes, right? The John Jones, the Stipe Miocic, what were you focusing on in those second fights to be better? What were the things you were watching? What were the ways you were training to try to be at least one strike better, one takedown better than you were in fight one?
Fight one to fight two, you try to clean up things. You feel like you have a better understanding of what the opponent's going to do. Fight 2 to 3, all chips are on the table, right? Because you've seen everything. But it's small adjustments, because you can't overhaul everything, because ultimately you're in that position because of who you are and who you were prior to the defeat. So going back to the drawing board and trying to do everything brand new, it's a massive mistake that so many fighters make. It's small little adjustments that you hope will close the gap. Because generally in fight one, it's pretty close. Fight two, you get, because you come back and show you're 1A in a division. Robert Whitaker has done that. Has Robert Whitaker showed new skill on the way to getting this rematch? Little things. But what he has really showed is he's more willing to go wherever the fight takes place. So with Darren Till, he took him down more. With Jared Cannonier, he hurt him and he kept him at range. So he's been more willing to fight wherever the fight takes place and not force things. He forced a lot in the first fight against Israel Adesanya. And with a guy that can counter in the way that the last Stylebender can counter, you can't force anything. So for Bobby Knuckles, he has got to find his groove early, but also be okay going through the grind like he did against Joel Romero 2 times. Going through the grind in the Darren Till fight and just doing enough to win. But as we've seen on multiple occasions, RC, Israel Adesanya is an absolute beast, man.
So do you think you kind of talked about Robert Whitaker having to learn to take the fight wherever it needs to go to get the W. When you've watched him in the last three fights or 4 fights since fighting Israel Adesanya, 3 fights, has he improved enough to beat the last Stylebender in the rematch?
You know what's crazy is Ryan, he was good enough prior, right?
But the first one seemed dominant to me though, DC.
Yeah,
it
but
seemed
it did.
like
But it did. But Ryan, it did, my brother. But guess why? We saw Izzy go to hell and back to beat Kelvin Gastelum in April. Then when him and Rob fought in the fall, Rob is almost the same type of body style as Kelvin Gastelum. Rob presents wrestling issues for Izzy on paper. So Rob went into that fight with Kelvin Gastelum went through so much damage in that fight in Atlanta that by round 5, Izzy was dropping him with everything. Remember, Izzy stood there and goes, I'm willing to die for this. I'm willing to die for this to be the champion. Right? It's a moment that will live forever in the UFC. Gastelum almost had to go through that fire in order to make the fight look like it did. And by round 5, Izzy had broke him down. That's why he got dropped and almost finished at the end of the round. So when Robert went into the fight, it seemed as though Robert goes, the blueprint has now been laid. Now I need to go and just attack him and make it dirty because I feel I'm tougher than Kelvin Gastelum. And that didn't work. Izzy was fresh. Izzy was popping him with the counters. He hit him with a nasty check left hook and dropped him and finished him. He was good enough then. But I think now he understands that he does not have to replicate what someone else did in order to try and beat Adesanya. Here's the danger. And I know it's a bit long-winded, Ryan. I'm sorry. Here's the danger. You saw Jan Blachowicz. You saw Jan Blachowicz fight very patient, wait, get to the end of the fight, take him down, and it didn't look like Izzy was able to find anything or a way out from Jan. Now you got to try to be careful not to try and go and do the same thing. It's a copycat world, man, in fighting. And Robert Whitaker cannot fall victim to that.
You know, what's crazy is you get so excited to watch these top-level fighters get in the octagon and do the physical battle, right? The physical battle is what we generally see. It's what generally excites us fans. But it's the mental warfare and the schematic battle that we don't necessarily understand or give enough credit. Guys like you who have actually been in the heat and been in the fight understand that, okay, just because it's like saying that because one team beat another team and we beat that team, we could beat the team we're playing. Like, that's not the way it works. Like, all fights and all styles, all bodies, they present different matchups. And that's what's exciting.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.